Writing's just not your thing. Don't become a writer. I heard those words my freshman year of college. Well, after 2 books, I think my professor was wrong. So what do you do if you've been told you're not a good enough writer? Or maybe you've told yourself that you're just not a good writer. Well, today I want to share with you 3 pro tips that can help you today become a better writer. Let's get started. Hey messengers, welcome to the Market Your Message show. I'm your host, Jonathan Milligan, and author of the book, Your Message Matters, How to Rise Above the Noise and Get Paid for What You Know. And today we're going to tackle an important topic, and that is, Jonathan, I don't think I'm just a good enough writer. I'm just not very good at writing. I have a passion for writing, but I just don't think I can be like these best-selling authors out there. But I want to write. And what do you do when you have those 2 things at conflict? Well, I'm going to dive into what I believe are 3 pro tips that literally, if you apply these today, will unleash your ability to write and to write well. Sound good? In fact, here's what we're going to discover today. We're going to discover why the best-selling authors are not always the best writers. Did you ever think about that? Why people value pragmatic writing over verbose writing, how to boost your confidence as a writer, and much, much more. And not only that, but you might be saying, Jonathan, I am just at square one. I don't know where to start. Well, we've put together a 9-page blueprint for you. It's called the Discover Your Message Blueprint. This is our most popular download that we have, and you can get it for free. All you got to do is go to marketyourmessage.com/discover, and you could grab this 9-page blueprint. It's going to help you discover your purpose, your people, and your passion. Those are the 3 elements you need to have a powerful message and a powerful online business brand. So go grab that today. Go to marketyourmessage.com/discover. All right, so we're going to get into this. What are 3 pro tips that can help you become a better writer? And let me just say this. Let me start off with this. Sometimes this never fully goes away. You learn to move forward anyway. Even while I was writing my latest book, Your Message Matters, and this is my first traditionally published book. So I'd written another book called The 15 Success Traits of Pro Bloggers about 4 years ago. This was a self-published book. And then this was through Baker Books, a publishing house. And even while I was in the middle of writing this, do you want to know what the number 1 thought that was going on in my head? In fact, in a minute, I'm going to show you why we call this the Gremlins. The Gremlins going on inside of your head. This was the thought. Jonathan, this is too good of a book title for a writer like you. Jonathan, this is too good of a book title for someone with your story. Like there's somebody else out there that's got a better story, bigger experience than you that should be writing this book. And literally the person who wrote Your Message Matters had to first believe that his message mattered. Isn't that interesting? And so part of this is, if you're feeling this, welcome. It's normal. Almost every writer I know experiences this. But that doesn't mean that you have to always live with doubt, because doubt can be paralyzing. That fear that keeps you from actually sitting down in the chair and doing some writing. And we want to get you unlocked and moving forward today. So let me talk about 3, what I would consider 3 pro tips. And each of these tips come from a different book that I've brought with me today. And so I might do a little bit of reading out of each of these books to kind of drive home the tip. All right, so here is pro tip number 1. Start before you're ready. You're never going to be ready. You're never going to be fully at that place where, you know what, I think I have enough experience now to write a book. No, the experience comes by actually writing. There's a great book that I read a couple years ago. It's a short read. It's from Stephen Pressfield, and it's called Do the Work. And he talks about this concept of start before you're ready. And I just want to read just a portion right out of the book, because I think it'd be an encouragement to you today. Listen to this. Start before you're ready. Don't prepare, begin. Remember, our enemy is not lack of preparation. It's not the difficulty of the project or the state of the marketplace or the emptiness of our bank account. The enemy is resistance. The enemy is our chattering brain, which if we give it so much as a nanosecond, will start producing excuses, alibis, transparent self-justifications, and a million reasons why we can't, shouldn't, won't do what we know we need to do. Start before you're ready. You know what? That's the secret. You have to kind of get started before you're ready. You got to just start doing the things, even though you don't feel fully prepared, because here's the reality. You're never going to be fully prepared. If you have this idea that, well, if I learn just a little bit more, then I'll feel like I understand it all. No, most people who are successful start before they're ready. And you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable and get going before you're ready to get going. That's pro tip number 1. Here's pro tip number 2. Dump the Gremlins. Now, you remember the movie Gremlins from the 80s? I have the music in my head right now. I'm not going to sing it for you. But the Gremlins, if you don't know the story of the Gremlins, it's these cute little creatures. What are they called? Mogwai? Something like that? I don't remember. I'm going off the top of my head. I hadn't seen the movie in years. And yet after midnight, don't feed them, don't get water on them, because they turn into these ferocious creatures called gremlins, and they will eat you, and they will eat and torment you. And you know what? That's what happens to a lot of us writers. We have the gremlins going on inside of our head. There's another book that when I was writing my latest book, I kept going back to, and it's called Write-a-thon. Write your book in 26 days and live to tell about it. Now, I did not write my book in 26 days. It was much longer than that. But what I loved about this book is it really helps you with little, I would call them little devotional thoughts each day to get your mind in the right place so that you can sit down and write when you feel like you've got a story to share, right? But there's one particular chapter called Dump the Gremlins. And I want to read a little bit of this from the book. And the author here is quoting B. Lynn Goodwin that says, "Send your judgment gremlins out on the patio, or lock them in the trunk of your car, or send them on a field trip. Be sure to thank them for caring as you wave goodbye." And then later on, she would write more about B.L. Goodwin. It says, "I like B. Lynn Goodwin's advice. Send the gremlins on a field trip or lock them in the trunk of your car while you're writing." And Lamont suggested locking up the critical voices in little glass canning jars and setting them on a shelf out of sight of your workspace. I don't care what you do with the little voices in your head, so long as you send them away until you're done with your writing time. You cannot write with that kind of nasty stuff floating around in your head. Kick them out now. And so that's what I would encourage you to do, is you got to think about the importance of setting that aside as much as you can and just say, you know what? Yes, I might not be a good enough writer. Yes, I might not have everything figured out. Yes, I know I'm inadequate. I know I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure this out. You got to bottle those up. And you could do that by taking a canning jar and just physically, mentally bottle those words up and say, for the next 30 minutes, I'm suspending those beliefs. I'm putting them in timeout. I'm sending them on a field trip. I'm locking them outside so I can spend 30 minutes writing. So dump the gremlins is pro tip number 2. All right, here's pro tip number 3. Become a farmer. Now, if you've been hanging around the Market Your Message show, you've heard me talk about this illustration, but I tell you, the more and more I think about it, the more it is so true. For us who are trying to grow a message-based business, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. You do not build an audience overnight. You don't build multiple income streams so that you can work online and work from anywhere overnight. It is like buying a farm. And what is a farmer supposed to do? Work on the land every single day. Rain, sun, doesn't matter. You are working the farm. In fact, I talked about this in my book because I thought it was so important to hit this. In chapter number 2, it's why you should believe your message. And I talk about this concept of why you should become a farmer. Here's just a little bit of what I wrote. So what's the answer? It's simple. Become a farmer. Farmers don't focus on results. They focus on actions. Sure, the ultimate goal of a farmer is a bountiful harvest, but they know that many days of action eventually lead to results. Let me just say that again. Many days of action eventually leads to results. How did I write this book? One day at a time, one 30-minute focus block at a time, over the course of about 8 months, and then several rounds of edits after it. That's how I wrote a book. And it's just like a farmer, right? But then I want to drive home the point. Imagine a farmer who spends an entire day planting seed in his field. The next day he wakes up, hurries to the window, hoping to see a knee-high crop. But when he sees nothing, he exclaims, "See, I knew this wasn't going to work." Now, as absurd as that sounds, we do the same thing every day. We take a little bit of action, hoping for an immediate result. When we don't see results, we convince ourselves all the reasons why our efforts will never work. Most people plant in the spring only to give up before the harvest in the fall. Don't let that be said of you. Become a farmer. Give yourself permission to measure your actions, not your results, for a season. That's the key. Start measuring your actions. We spend too much time measuring results, especially at the beginning. We need to measure our actions instead. And measure results is, do I have a book written today? Versus measuring actions, did I sit down for 30 minutes and write today? And then wake up the next day. Did I sit down 30 minutes and write today? And you do it the next day. And before you know it, you got a book. That's how it happens. So which pro tip means the most to you? Which one are you going to apply? Remember, pro tip number 1, you got to start before you're ready. Pro tip number 2, you have to dump the gremlins. Put them in a jar. Send them on a field trip. And number 3, you got to become a farmer. Well, once again, if you don't know where to start and you're just trying to get started in this whole thing, the best place to start is to grab our blueprint. It's called the Discover Your Message Blueprint. It'll help you determine the right business you should start with your story or your message. You can grab that guide by going to marketyourmessage.com/discover. All right, that's it for this episode. I hope this was helpful to you. And if you would, take a moment and like, share, or subscribe to our show. We'd also love if you'd review it as well. And also, what topics do you want me to cover in future episodes? Let me know. But until then, never forget, your message matters.